Good evening and welcome to our extraordinary meeting of Council on the 16th of January 2023. Acknowledgement of country. I would like to begin this meeting by acknowledgement for the traditional owners of this land on which we meet today. I would also like to pay my respects to elders both past, present and emerging. Declarations of webcasting. I inform all those in attendance at this meeting that the meeting is being webcast and that those in attendance should refrain from making any defamatory statements concerning any person, councillor or employee, and refrain from discussing those matters subject to closed council proceedings as indicated in clause 14.1 of the Code of Meeting Practice. There are no apologies tonight. Thank you, councillors. Declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest tonight? Thank you. Public forum. Any person registered to speak during public forum on matters including in the business paper and registered via the council website prior to 12 noon on the day of the meeting will have the opportunity to speak. There'll only be 2 speakers for and against on each matter on the business paper. Public forum will be allocated half an hour time in total, with each speaker having 3 minutes to speak. Speakers not registered for public forum will have an opportunity to speak on matters on the business paper if time permits. Presentations. 6.1, presentation financial statements presented by Crow Australia, sorry, that was a change of name, prepared by Ross Gurney. Thank you. Mr. Gurney.
Thank you, Mayor Statham. The presentation will be delivered by Gabriel Faponle of Crow Australasia. Crow is contracted by the New South Wales Audit Office to conduct Council's annual external audit. Mr. Faponle's presentation will provide an overview of the 21-22 audit, and there will be an opportunity for councillors to ask Gabriel questions at the end of after the presentation.
Good afternoon. I'm not sure if you can hear me.
Yep. Yes, Gabriel.
All right. So I'm just going to try and share my screen. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor and the General Manager and the Councillor and the Rest of the committee as well. Fortunately, I couldn't be with you guys this evening over there, but I'm sure that this presentation will be well received and should cover most of all the good job that have been done by the council as well as the audit office that we're representing as well. Please, if you cannot hear me clearly, please let me know so I can speak a bit louder if that's the case.
No, it's very clear. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I just want to start by actually just say thanks to Ross and his team for all the hard work they put in to get us to the time that we're able to launch the financial statement. And I know it wasn't easy because of a lot of disruptions and waiting on the value of a lot of information as well to be able to complete the financial statement. I think Ross and his team, especially Shani and Jono, they put a lot of effort in to make sure we get the work across the line, make sure we complete this in time to lodge it by that December of the extension that we sought for at that time. So I just want to thank them for their cooperation, their hard work for that as well. Thank you very much. We'll go to, as Ross has mentioned as well, we've been contracted by New South Wales Audit Office to perform the work for them, and they are the overall signing officer on this job. And so I'm sort of representing them and presenting this snapshot of the work we've conducted to the council. The presentation is going to cover few areas which has been noted here. First and foremost is talking about what we've issued for the audit opinion, which is we've issued an unqualified audit opinion And what I mean, it's just talking about that we've not found anything to suggest that there's any material misstatement with the financial statement, which has been lodged already. So I think it's a good place everyone wants to be when you've performed the audit. When you start going to the where you have a qualified audit opinion, then that becomes a different topic. It sort of open up a lot of things and to be discussed or to be questioned as well. Another area we touched on, which is the key audit to risk being addressed, that it's coming up from the annual engagement plan that was issued at the beginning of the audit. So we're just going to be talking to that, what we've done in those areas, how we've addressed them, some of the things we've noted, if there's anything at all. And then I also talked about no material misstatement, which is sort of relate back to the purpose or the reason we've issued on the qualified audit opinion in the first place. And I will quickly touch on the compliance with the legislative requirement, just to mention if council have finding compliance or not, and also touch on some recommendation for improvement going forward as well. The first thing we sort of noted in annual engagement plan is the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. As everyone is aware, this has been
We've lost your sound, Gabriel.
Mayor, I might just advise anybody that's watching the telecast that unfortunately we're having problems with Mr. Prom's presentation. It seems that he's lost connection, so we're just trying to join him back in. So we'll just have a short pause, but continue to video this. Can we just open up the audio and remove that screen so the mayor can just share?
There'll be a 10 minutes recess just while the issue is being dealt with. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Leslie. Can I have a seconder? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bryce. All those in favour say aye. Thank you.
I'll move that we resume standing orders.
Thank you, Councillor Coleman. Can I have a seconder? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bryce. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. My sincere apologies this evening, anybody watching live streaming. There was a technical difficulty in Dubbo, but now we're returning to the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thanks for everybody. Sorry about that. My laptop just literally shut down and couldn't start again, so I have to rush down to the office to log on again. And I'll try and quickly make the presentation a very quick one. And if you have any question, then I can take it on. I mentioned before the impact of COVID was looked at as part of the process. We sort of look at how the COVID has impact on the council operations in terms of the financial statement as well and the operation in general. And we are comfortable to report to the council that there was no issue except what I've already mentioned before in terms of having a difficulty with the valuer, which is also impacted on the COVID. Apart from that, there was nothing else to be noted as well. The next issue we looked at is assessing the fair value of the IPP. This is regularly done each year as required by the accounting standard as well. So we look at how the council has sort of performed the assessment on the assets of the council. This year, one of the areas we looked at is more of the indexation because of the inflations that's happened across the country. We look at how the inflations has impact on the council asset as well. As a part of that, there was about 19.6 million that was noted as a part of that. And also there was an offset of that of 1.03 million that was due to the storm damage of the road, because we're only not just looking at the indexation of the or how the asset is going to be those indexation. We also look at if there's any impairment that's happened to the road as well, because there's been a lot of rain across the region as well. So we sort of look into that to sort of offset that to make sure we're not overstating the council asset as well. The other area we look at is information technology and the general control. This is quite important as all information that we rely on in conducting our audit is based on the council financial system. So we sort of look at this area to see if there's any sort of policy in place and controls around area to make sure that we can still rely on what is coming out of the council financial statement as well, financial information as well. And we find that there's no issue. And it's a good thing because I think in the past we've had to walk through deal with a lot of issues coming out of this area. So it's a good thing to report back to the council. Now there's nothing to be reported on this area. Another area we'll look at is restricted cash balance. I think we had last year, we had some few issues around the restricted cash balance in terms of making sure it's been reported correctly and making sure everything is done in line with the Local Government Act. I can report back to the council this year, there was no issue. All the reconciliation were properly done, and we have no issue in reporting anything to the council in related to restricted cash balance this year. In terms of the audit recommendation, we have 4 areas that we thought it's worth noting, which we've issued a management letter on this area as well. 3 of those are sort of carryover from previous years. Why the new area is more of the audit readiness as well, which is as a relations of the this is as a relations of what has happened in terms of these valuations of the asset as well. And apart from that, there's nothing else to be reported to the council. And sincerely apologize for the technology issue. And it was something I wasn't expecting. I think Trinity, myself, and Ali did try this afternoon to make sure that we are well ready to be able to present to the council this evening. So I apologize for that. And that's the end of my presentation. But if the council have any question, I can answer. I'm happy to take and answer that, or I can defer back to Ross.
Through you, Madam Mayor, did any councillors have any questions of Gabriel?
Just one, the $1.2 million for the roads, for the storm damage. Was that enough money? It seems like the amount of money for the roads should have been a lot more. There's a lot more damage than $1 million worth. I don't have the document with me, but I think that if you could just explain that to me a little bit better, that would be good.
I can answer that question. The $1.03 million that was referred to in the presentation related specifically to 2 sections of Walgan Road that were completely written down to nil value for obvious reasons. The rest of the road network was assessed as at least being usable, so there wasn't any impact on the value of those assets.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Goodman. Thank you, Mr. Gurney. If there's no further questions from councillors, we'd like to thank our audit person tonight for the report that's been received. Could I have somebody please move that report? Councillor Bryce, could I have a second to thank you? Councillor Goodsell, all those in favour say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Moving on to 8.1. Yes, there isn't any mayoral minutes tonight. Moving on to finance and asset reports. Mr. Gurney, thank you. Could I have a mover, please, for this to be discussed? Thank you, councillor Goodsell and councillor Marnie. Thank you. All those in favour say aye. Thank you.
Did Ross, did you need to speak to this? No. So the mover can speak to it.
Councillor Goodsell, would you like to speak to that? Thank you.
Only briefly, Mayor Statham. I'd like to congratulate Mr. Gurney and his team for that outstanding result. I think that a lot of hard work has gone into contributing to this positive result that we're looking at in the financials today. And I think that a comment that these outcomes are a welcome validation that council staff have managed all finances legally, responsibly and prudently is positive, achieving 8 out of 10 of the benchmarks. And I think the positive result overall must be considered in regard to external influence, government funding. Without this funding, our benchmarks may not have been met and we would have had a deficit operating result. Importantly for me, this deficit without government funding would directly reflect the significant shortfall which has been identified in our annual general revenue in the independent rating review recently. So that sits nicely with me, and it's also evident that the 2 financial benchmarks we did not meet were not in our financial performance ratio, but in our infrastructure asset performance indicators. And the comments provide stated councillors continually not met this benchmark due to inadequate funding. Just a quick question, Mr. Gurney, I don't understand. Well, it's written in the paper, it's a brief explanation how we can possibly meet the benchmark of infrastructure backlog ratio when our biggest problem is infrastructure backlog.
Mr. Gurney.
Through you, Mayor Statham. The way that council has gone about attending to the infrastructure backlog is that there's been a focus on repair of assets in very poor condition. So that's reduced effectively the backlog, but it isn't sustainable and it isn't the most efficient way of renewing assets. It is better to renew the assets at the optimum point in their life cycle rather than when they get to very broken down assets at the end. So by directing funding to those very poor assets, it's helped to meet the benchmark, but it's not the best practice. In addition to that, council's currently improving its asset management practices, which will also assist with having better data behind the figures that make up the ratio. All of the infrastructure indicators are not audited by the audit office. It's up to council to come up with those figures. They're not part of council's audited statements.
So was that deliberately done so we could chuck more money at that particular part of infrastructure renewal? Was that a deliberate thing, or we had to actually renew the assets because they needed to be renewed?
The focus was on the very poor assets, so obviously they did need to be renewed, but it would be more effective if we were renewing them at the optimum point in the cycle before they become very poor. Obviously that costs more money when they're in the worst condition, whereas if we renew at the optimum point, we may be able to extend the life for a number of years of the assets, which is much better practice, and that's what we're moving towards with better funding.
Thank you. Just one very last thing to say. So it does hearten me to be able to sit here tonight with the hope for the future, because I've sat through many of these auditors' reports and financial statement presentations, acknowledging that the following year could possibly be producing a similar, if not worse, result: struggle, cut, compromise, prioritise, skimping, with staff focused mostly on cost containment and productivity savings when considering expenditure for basic services. So I'm happy to be sitting here tonight with hope that, this might be looking like a different picture next year.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell, and thank you, Mr Gurney. Councillor Marnie?
Thank you. Just want to reiterate some of the comments by Councillor Goodsell and certainly the work the staff have done. I very much support your move to having a much more focused approach on asset management planning. I think getting to assets when they're in a very poor state does have a risk attached to it as you allow others to slide into that very expensive repair zone. So I appreciate what's happening there. I'm also noting that essentially we're running a deficit only through the use of grants has allowed us to bring forward what appears to be a surplus. But in fact, we have a longer trend that's going on. And I note the comments Councillor Goodsell made that's part of that thinking around the special rates variation is to address some of that trend. But certainly we've got a significant amount looking at possibly a $3.67 million deficit rather than a surplus. It does appear good on my books if I'm sitting in a council that brings forward a surplus, but I recognise the overarching trend. I note that the financial assistance grants are captured in that money that's applied. I would hope that would be seen as an annual income rather than a grant. But I appreciate technically it is grant, but we'd hope that the federal government continues to provide federal assistance grants at that level, if not at an increased level. I think you know me, and I won't indulge everyone with me asking half a dozen questions. So I'll just ask a couple of quick ones and I'll ask you the others later. But the bringing forward of 75% of next year's financial assistance grant, how is that going to place us next year when we only have 25% of that left, if I'm understanding what's in the report?
Through you, Mayor Statham. In recent years, the financial assistance grant has been paid 50% in advance. It's a decision of the federal government at the time of the budget as to whether they pay any at all in advance or continue that historical pattern. For last financial year, they paid 3/4 in advance, so that can have an impact if that changes in future. So we received 75% in June 2022 and 25% in instalments over this financial year. So we do receive the total. It's really just about the timing and how that impacts the operating result.
Okay, thank you. Just on another positive, I was particularly pleased at the 6-fold increase in recycling income. I'd be interested if we, in the operations committees or the waste committee, that we could actually get a better understanding of what's happening there. But that's to me, on the surface, looks like a terrific result. So, and again, there's savings in workers' compensation and other efficiencies. So I'm really pleased, and I thank you for the report. The report's always a great detailed summary. It's a very difficult and complex document to get your head over 120 pages or as a councillor. So I appreciate the work you do in providing a succinct report like this to council. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Marnie. Anybody else wishing to speak? Councillor Leslie?
Thank you, Mayor Statham. I intend to vote against this particular recommendation. I do so reluctantly. As councillors, we have a key responsibility to maintain our assets, asset maintenance, and of course there's major asset failure, as we know, with our roads and drains in our city. The reason I wish to vote against it is to express my disappointment by the decision of this council to make the operations committee meeting, which under previous councils had met on a monthly basis, but this council has the council laws in this Council has resolved that operations committee to meet only every 3 months. I believe that's a major disadvantage. It prevents councillors from monitoring the issue. It prevents councillors from bringing forward issues, and even at the 3 monthly meeting, when issues are brought forward on these matters, they're not minuted, because not only is the council decided not to only meet for that committee to only meet every 3 months, they changed the terms of reference so that any items that don't meet the terms of reference won't be minuted. You don't get many opportunities to make an issue on this, and I intend to do so now. And I will vote against this because I believe that the councillors have been poorly served in their responsibilities to ensure that our assets are fully maintained and improved where we can.
Thank you, Councillor Leslie. Anyone else wishing to speak? Councillor Goodsell, right of reply.
Just very briefly, I do support Councillor Leslie in that. I think we do need to look at the operations committee and how regularly they're meeting, but maybe for another day.
Thank you, Councillor Goodsell. I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? Councillor Leslie. Thank you. Certainly. All those in favour say aye. Councillor Goodsell, Goodwin, Bryce, O'Connor, Marnie, McGee and Coleman, and against Councillor Leslie. Thank you. Item 9, business of great urgency.
I have on this statement.
Yes, Councillor Goodwin.
Traffic lights at the bottom of Main Street. It's I brought it up at the last meeting and it was deemed a matter of great urgency at the last meeting, and the traffic lights have not changed since that meeting. And I don't know what happens, but to get them up and running in the right order, but in the right phasing. We've had at least 3 major traffic accidents on the Great Western Highway, and as a result, traffic's been diverted through to the Bells Line of Road, and the traffic has been banked up way back to at least Bunnings for hours, and people can't get through. I know of people that have been given traffic tickets for going through the red light because there's been nobody there at the traffic lights, and they've been waiting for 5 minutes or so to get through the traffic lights. So they're my submissions.
Councillor Goodwin, I will declare that is business of great urgency, and I do realise the significance of the accidents and the build-up of traffic. So, Mr. General Manager, what would you suggest? Who do we write to try and get an outcome on this? Thank you.
Well, with it being business of great urgency, it's up to Councillor Goodsell to advance a motion for the council to vote on. But I can say that our Infrastructure Services Director has made representations to Transport for New South Wales. And as he said at the last meeting, I think there was an issue with the Telstra or the telecommunication connection. But I'm in the council's hand if Councillor Goodwin can just elaborate on his motion so the council can vote on that or the action that he's seeking.
Yeah, just urgent representation to obviously Transport New South Wales to try and get the phasing of the lights back to some sort of normality, or a better timing or phasing of those traffic lights, and maybe a review on all of the traffic lights in our area, because there are some traffic lights not just down at that intersection of Lithgow Street and Main Street, but there are some traffic lights here at the corner of Bridge Street and Maud Street that when you turn right, if someone's coming towards you the traffic lights change prior to you being able to turn right. So possibly a review on all of the traffic lights, especially the phasing down at Main Street and Lithgow Street.
Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you, councillor Bryce.
I just have a question.
Yes, councillor Coleman.
I support you, councillor Goodwin. I've got no issues with that. But then the general manager did say that you've already written to Transport for New South Wales. Is that correct?
I don't know that we've written, but we've certainly made representations.
So how have we made representation if
I'll
we
have to
haven't
take
written?
that on notice and advise. The
Okay, so
council
I'm
by
wondering
email.
what's the next step of escalation if we've already made representation.
Well, the council is raising this as a matter of further urgency, and we'd at the end of the day, that's the options that we have to make representations to Transport, and we can also copy the Minister for Regional Roads.
That's what I was thinking.
I
Maybe
wouldn't
we
put
need to go to the
bureaucratic
next
at
level.
this point.
Perhaps we need to go to the next level and also copy in the state member and the Minister for Regional Roads.
The general manager has suggested to write, if everyone's happy with that, and also to send Faraway. So all those in favour say aye. Against? Unanimous. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I actually have an issue.
Yes, councillor Leslie.
I've just received out of my councillor box there, a letter dated the 10th of December. It appears to me to be a very important letter relating to work for 29 to 39 Sanford Avenue, and a DA that was approved in 2004, and it's now proceeding. But then the question is, why is it carrying forward? And there's issues of substantial commencement, and I think that matter needs to be addressed. But my real concern is that the people who wrote this to me would, as I have not replied, may well assume that I don't care. Now, that's obviously not true. And I would hope, or would ask, as to that I don't come into the council, and I didn't know that the letter was there, and I wasn't informed of it. So I'd like some sort of process to be in place for letters such as this, that either I'm told they're here and I have to come in and get it, or they're forwarded to me either through the mail. That would suit me fine. And and now, of course, I can't put a notice of motion in for the next council meeting because that is now closed, and so I'm in a very difficult position to know how to proceed on this matter because the information was not given to me in time.
Councillor Leslie, I believe every other councillor received that letter. We're all in the same situation. It was just previous to Christmas, and I don't believe it's a matter of great urgency. I believe the general manager needs to get a copy of that letter, and then he can look into that situation. We can't discuss that at the moment. It's probably a private thing, and I wouldn't like names to be used on live streaming. So may I suggest, councillor Leslie, that all mail, unless otherwise determined with Trinity or Sarah, goes into the pigeonholes. And I've only received mine a couple of weeks ago as well. And with Christmas, we need now to get the general manager a copy of that letter so that he can then go on and determine what the situation is and talk to the people in planning rather than discuss this over, which is a confidential private issue on live streaming. Any other people, any other councillors wishing to talk about anything about matters of great urgency? If not, I'll close the meeting tonight. Thank you at 7 p.m.